Introduction. Overview of The Glass Castle. The Glass Castle is Jeannette Walls' memoir, where she recounts her unconventional, often chaotic childhood. Raised by deeply flawed but fiercely independent parents, Rex and Rose Mary Walls, Jeannette and her siblings grow up in an environment characterized by poverty, neglect, and instability. Despite the hardships, her story is not one of victimhood but resilience and survival. Through vivid anecdotes, Walls explores her family's complexities, the impact of her father's alcoholism, her mother's artistic nonconformity, and how these experiences shaped her into a successful journalist and author. The book draws its title from Rex's fantastical dream of building a glass castle, a symbol of his grand ambitions that never materialized. At its heart, The Glass Castle examines the tension between love and disappointment, independence and responsibility, and the courage required to break free from one's past while finding reconciliation with it. Chapter 1. A Woman on the Street. The memoir opens with a striking scene. Jeannette Walls, now a successful journalist living in New York City, spots her mother, Rose Mary, picking through garbage in Manhattan. Jeannette is both shocked and ashamed of the encounter. She is overwhelmed by the contrast between her current life of privilege and her mother's continued life of destitution. Rose Mary's response to the situation is casual and carefree, emphasizing the philosophical differences that have always existed between mother and daughter. Key concepts. 1. Conflict between shame and love. Jeannette's reaction to seeing her mother on the streets encapsulates her internal conflict. She loves her parents deeply but feels ashamed of their choices and the way they live. 2. Introduction to family dysfunction. This moment introduces the reader to the dysfunction of Jeannette's family, particularly how her parents' refusal to conform to societal norms continues to affect their lives. Important quotes. 1. I was embarrassed. I was ashamed of myself for wearing pearls and living on Park Avenue while my parents were busy keeping warm and finding something to eat. 2. Mom, what am I supposed to tell people when they ask about you? Key lessons. The complexity of family dynamics. Jeannette's shame and frustration highlight the complexities of familial love, especially when parents refuse to fulfill traditional roles of responsibility. Parental choices and their consequences. The scene sets the stage for understanding how Rose Mary and Rex's choices, particularly their defiance of societal expectations, have long-lasting consequences for their children. Chapter 2. The Desert. In this chapter, the narrative shifts to Jeannette's early childhood, where the family is living a nomadic life in the desert Southwest. The Walls children, Jeannette, her brother Brian, and sister Lori, experience extreme freedom but also neglect. Jeannette recounts a significant childhood event. When she is just 3 years old, she suffers severe burns while cooking hot dogs by herself. Her parents' response to this incident is a testament to their extreme laissez-faire parenting style. After a few days in the hospital, Rex decides to do the skedaddle and take Jeannette home against medical advice. Key concepts. 1. Parental neglect versus independence. While Jeannette's parents believe in giving their children independence, this often leads to dangerous neglect. Jeannette's burn accident is a clear example of this tension. 2. Freedom and risk. Rex and Rose Mary's philosophy of extreme freedom is both a blessing and a curse. While the children learn resilience and self-reliance, they also face constant risks to their health and safety. Important quotes. 1. Mom believed that children shouldn't be burdened with rules and restrictions. 2. You'd have to be brain dead to do the kind of cooking that little girl was doing. Key lessons. Self-reliance learned through neglect. Jeannette and her siblings are forced to become self-reliant from a very young age, as their parents often abdicate basic caregiving responsibilities. Dangers of extreme parenting philosophies. While Rex and Rose Mary see themselves as liberating their children from societal constraints, their approach puts their children in harm's way and reveals the darker side of extreme nonconformity. Chapter 3. The Skedaddle. The Walls family's nomadic lifestyle is detailed further in this chapter. Rex, a charismatic dreamer, constantly uproots the family, claiming they are fleeing from the FBI or other enemies. The family lives in makeshift homes in various desert towns, often leaving in the middle of the night to escape creditors. Rex speaks of grandiose plans to strike it rich and build a glass castle, a fantastical dream home that he promises to construct for his family. Key concepts. 1. Empty promises. Rex's dream of the glass castle becomes symbolic of his unfulfilled promises. It represents both hope and disillusionment for Jeannette and her siblings, as they realize their father is more focused on his dreams than their immediate needs. 2. The escapist lifestyle. The family's constant moving, which Rex calls the skedaddle, is a way to avoid facing reality, responsibilities, and consequences. This sense of rootlessness leaves the children with no stability or security. Important quotes. 1. Dad said he had done the skedaddle often enough that he knew the escape routes by heart. 2. We were always supposed to be moving on to a better life, but I never understood why we couldn't have it right now. Key lessons. The allure and danger of dreams. Rex's dream of the glass castle keeps the family hopeful, but it also serves as a distraction from the pressing realities of their impoverished life. The glass castle becomes a metaphor for unattainable fantasies. Escapism's consequences. The constant skedaddling prevents the Walls family from establishing roots or stability, perpetuating the cycle of poverty and dislocation. Chapter 4. Battle Mountain. In Battle Mountain, Nevada, the family experiences a brief period of relative stability. Jeannette's father gets a job as an electrician, and her mother continues to pursue her painting. Despite the town's poverty, the children explore their surroundings with a sense of adventure. However, the cracks in the family's foundation begin to deepen as Rex's drinking problem worsens and Rosemary's neglect intensifies. Key concepts. 1. Temporary stability. For the first time in the narrative, the Walls family experiences a semblance of stability, but it is short-lived. Rex's inability to maintain employment and his growing alcoholism soon sabotage any progress. 2. The children's resourcefulness. While Rex and Rosemary are absorbed in their own lives, Jeannette and her siblings demonstrate resourcefulness, often scavenging for food and finding ways to entertain themselves in the absence of parental guidance. Important quotes. 1. When Dad was sober, he was charming, brilliant, and capable of doing anything. But when he was drunk, he was a different person. 2. Mom was focused on her painting, and we were left to our own devices. Key lessons. The impact of addiction. Rex's alcoholism increasingly undermines his ability to provide for his family and maintain the brief stability they find in Battle Mountain. Children's adaptive skills. The Walls children, despite the neglect they face, learn to adapt to their circumstances and rely on each other for survival, demonstrating remarkable resilience and resourcefulness. Chapter 5. Welch, West Virginia. The family moves to Rex's hometown of Welch, West Virginia, in search of a fresh start. However, the town, ravaged by poverty and unemployment, offers little hope for improvement. The Walls family lives in a dilapidated house with no indoor plumbing or heat, and the children face bullying at school. Rex's drinking spirals out of control, and Rosemary becomes more detached, focusing on her art and refusing to work as a teacher despite their dire financial situation. Key concepts. 1. Deeper descent into poverty. Welch represents the lowest point in the family's financial and emotional struggles. The house they live in is barely habitable, and the children are left to fend for themselves in an increasingly hostile environment. 2. Family fractures. Rex and Rosemary's inability to provide basic necessities leads to further fractures in the family dynamic. The children are often left to care for one another as their parents retreat into their own worlds. Important quotes. 1. Our house was at the edge of town, sinking into the ground as if the earth was trying to swallow it. 2. Dad was drinking more than ever, and Mom seemed to be drifting further away. Key lessons. The devastating effects of poverty. The family's living conditions in Welch highlight the devastating impact of extreme poverty, both on their physical surroundings and their emotional well-being. Parental abdication. Rex and Rosemary's increasing detachment forces the children to take on adult responsibilities, exacerbating the roles of caregiver and protector that Jeannette and her siblings must play. Chapter 6. Survival in Welch. Jeannette becomes increasingly self-reliant, taking on jobs to support herself and her siblings. The Walls children begin to recognize that their parents are not going to change, and they start planning their own escape from Welch. Rex's drinking worsens, leading to violent outbursts, while Rosemary continues to prioritize her art over the needs of her children. Despite this, Jeannette remains hopeful about her future and begins to see education as her ticket out of poverty. Key concepts. 1. Emerging independence. Jeannette's growing independence is a central theme in this chapter. She realizes that she cannot rely on her parents for support and must take control of her own future. 2. Desperation and hope. Despite the overwhelming challenges, Jeannette remains hopeful and determined to escape the cycle of poverty that has defined her family's life. Important quotes. 1. I was going to build the life I wanted, with or without their help. 2. I was starting to understand that if I wanted a better life, I had to make it happen on my own. Key lessons. Taking control of one's destiny. Jeannette's determination to change her circumstances reflects the theme of self-empowerment and taking control of one's destiny, even in the face of overwhelming obstacles. The power of education. Jeannette begins to see education as her way out of poverty, a key step toward breaking free from the life her parents have trapped her in. Chapter 7. New York City, a fresh start. Jeannette and Laurie finally make their escape to New York City, where they begin new lives, free from their parents' influence. Jeannette enrolls in college and starts her career as a journalist, while Laurie pursues her passion for art. Their brothers, Brian and Maureen, eventually join them in the city. Although their lives improve significantly, Rex and Rosemary eventually follow them to New York, continuing to live as drifters. The Walls children maintain their distance but struggle with feelings of responsibility for their parents. Key concepts. 1. Breaking free. Jeannette and her siblings finally escape the cycle of poverty and neglect by leaving Welch and building independent lives in New York. This chapter marks a significant turning point in the memoir, where the children begin to break free from their parents' dysfunction. 2. Ongoing guilt and responsibility. Despite their newfound independence, Jeannette and her siblings continue to feel a sense of guilt and responsibility for their parents, who remain unwilling to change their lifestyle. Important quotes. 1. I had been raised to survive. Now I was learning how to live. 2. Even though I had made it to New York, I was still haunted by my family. Key lessons. The importance of independence. Jeannette's ability to build a new life for herself in New York demonstrates the power of independence and perseverance in overcoming adversity. The weight of family obligations. Even after escaping her parents' influence, Jeannette grapples with feelings of guilt and responsibility, highlighting the lasting impact of familial bonds. Chapter 8. Reconciliation and Acceptance. In the final chapter, Jeannette reflects on her relationship with her parents and her journey toward reconciliation. Although she never fully condones their actions, she comes to understand that their unconventional approach to life was rooted in their own struggles. Jeannette accepts that her parents will never change, but she no longer allows their choices to dictate her sense of self-worth or future. Key concepts. 1. Reconciliation with the past. Jeannette reaches a place of understanding and acceptance, realizing that she cannot change her parents but can choose how their influence affects her. 2. Forgiveness and moving on. Rather than holding on to anger and resentment, Jeannette forgives her parents and finds peace in the life she has built for herself. Important quotes. 1. You didn't worry about falling because you knew your parents would be there to catch you. Except that they weren't. 2. I knew Dad always had a plan. But what I didn't realize was that he never intended to carry it out. Key lessons. Healing through forgiveness. The journey of reconciliation involves accepting the flaws of those we love while not letting their choices define us. Forgiveness becomes a crucial step in Jeannette's healing process. Resilience and independence. Jeannette's ability to break free from her past and build a successful life demonstrates the power of resilience and self-reliance, even in the face of overwhelming adversity. Conclusion from the Glass Castle. 1. Resilience through adversity. Jeannette's story is a testament to human resilience, showing how children can survive and thrive even in the most difficult circumstances. Her resourcefulness and determination allow her to escape the cycle of poverty and neglect. 2. The complexity of family love. The Glass Castle explores the complexities of familial love, where deep affection can coexist with disappointment and frustration. Jeannette loves her parents but must reconcile this love with the pain their choices caused her. 3. The power of education and independence. Jeannette's journey illustrates the transformative power of education and independence. By pursuing her dreams, she is able to break free from her parents' dysfunctional lifestyle and create a better future for herself. 4. The burden of responsibility. Even after achieving independence, Jeannette struggles with feelings of guilt and responsibility for her parents. This highlights the emotional weight of family bonds, even when those relationships are harmful. 5. Acceptance and forgiveness. Ultimately, Jeannette's path to healing involves accepting her parents for who they are and forgiving them for their failures. She learns to separate her self-worth from their actions, allowing her to move forward. The Glass Castle by Jeannette Walls is a powerful memoir about the complexities of family, the struggle for survival, and the quest for independence. It is a deeply emotional story of overcoming adversity, learning to forgive, and finding strength in the face of hardship.